Hello everyone and welcome to this video. So the aim of this video is to give you a taste of what it would be like to take GCSE Art. So my aim is to show you an example of a sketchbook, also to show you an example of a workshop that we would do in a GCSE class, and then if you would like you can go away and you can have a go at that workshop yourself. So let's get started. So this first thing I'm going to show you is a video of a sketchbook, and this is actually a sketchbook which I've created whilst I've been in lockdown. So what I'm doing each week, I'm setting a task in the same way that I am for you for my GCSE students, and I'm recording the outcomes in this sketchbook and obviously filming the task so the students can see the practical elements. So I'm going to have a flick through this for you in this video, and I'm going to talk you through what is required in a GCSE sketchbook. So this is a personal project. The students were allowed to pick the theme themselves, and I've picked the theme My Surroundings. I just thought this would be an easy theme to follow whilst in lockdown because it can be whatever is around me. So I've started here with a mood board and a mind map. I've combined the two together. We always start a project in this way. So I've got images which I found on the internet. There are different artists' works. They all link to my theme. I've written some keywords around them, so artist names and things that describe them. I've tried to link them together so that similar images are placed together. After this, I have completed a drawing workshop. So all students were asked to explore media. So media is the materials we use to work. I've done toned, biro, fine liner and coloured pencil. I've worked from a first-hand source, so that's an image I've taken of myself. So this was of a bicycle that I took when I was in Amsterdam on holiday. And then I've drawn it in 3 different media. So exploring the same image, but working out what media works best for that image. And I've annotated it. So that's the written element of the work. I'm moving on to an artist research. So this is an artist called David Tress, and he looks at landscape. So I've got some pictures of his work, some information about him, and then I've got 3 images of my own which relate to landscapes, because as you can see, he's a landscape artist. And then I've annotated those again, saying why I've picked them and how they link. Then I've moved on to creating some responses to his work. So to start with, I used a bit of tracing paper and I created a drawn study of my images. I then drew this out and made a collage. I then drew my collage and made a mark making study. And then I went on to make another collage which was more simplified of my own images, and then did a continuous line drawing of this. So in total I made 5 different outcomes, all in the style of David Tress and taking inspiration. So on this page here we have a coffee drawn workshop. Now obviously, because the fact we're in lockdown, there are some limitations to the equipment that students have at home. So I've tried to use something which hopefully most people have at home. If you don't have coffee, you could use tea. You could even use gravy granules for this if needed. It's all about making different tones with a medium. So as you can see in the bottom left corner there, I've made a light tone, a medium tone and a dark tone. And in the video I'm going to play you in a minute, I show you how I created these 2 studies. So one of them on the left is more painted. So to create this, I've used a paintbrush and I've built up different layers and tones with the coffee. And then the other study is more of a coffee background, which I created through flicking and layering of the coffee itself. And then I've drawn into it with a pencil and finally worked into that image with a biro. Both are drawn or painted from a first-hand image. First-hand imagery just simply means an image you've taken yourself. So if you're considering taking GCSE Art, one of the biggest recommendations that I could give you is while you're out and about, wherever you are, if you see something interesting, take a picture of it. You never know when it will be useful, and it's really helpful just to have a bank of imagery that you can choose and work from in future projects. Even if you don't use that picture, say you take it this summer and you don't use it till you're in year 11, you've still got it and it's really useful to have. Lots of these pictures were taken just while I was out or on holiday, and I've used them 3 or 4 years later. So it's really worth just building up a bank of resources. So let's move on to the next slide. And I'm going to play for you this video. So as I said, this is a video of how I created that page that you just saw. It shows you how I've made my title, how I've done my 2 studies and the way that I've worked. The only thing it doesn't show you is my annotations. Now I know I keep mentioning annotations, and if you're not sure what these are, they are the written element of your GCSE. So in GCSE Art or GCSE Textiles, we have a written element, and that's where we simply write about the work of others or write about the work that we have completed ourselves. So, you know, when annotating this work, I would say, here I've created a series of studies using coffee. I talked about I made the different tones of coffee by the amount of coffee that I put into the pot and how I mixed it. I talked about the process, so building the layers. You'll see I use a hairdryer to dry the layers. I use paper towel. So it's really just explaining the method that I've done. So essentially, if this video wasn't here, you could read the annotation, and hopefully by reading the annotation, you'd understand how I got to that end outcome. Obviously, I still need to reflect on if it's successful, what artist it links to, and things like that. But you will get help with that, and I will guide you along the way, but I just want to make it clear that that is the written element, and there is writing to GCSE art, or textiles for that matter. So I'm just starting off by creating my title. I just simply decided to put a bit of masking tape, and I printed this title off the internet, off of a website called DeFont. I really liked the style, and it was really easy just to cut it out, stick it on. So I'm starting off by working from an image that I've took on a walk last summer, and this study is just created with a paintbrush and my different tones of coffee. So as I said, I made a light tone, a mid tone and a dark tone, and I just simply made those by adding more coffee to so I had 3 different pots, so a large amount of coffee, a medium size of coffee, and then not a lot of coffee, and then adding in the water. I started with the medium tone, and then I started to use the dark tone to build up those layers. I found that this was a process where I had to keep drying the work and then going back into it. I really had to build up the layers. So if you have a go at this task, it is quite time consuming. The second example I'm going to show you is a lot quicker, so if you haven't got much time, that one might be better for you. But this was effective. It just was quite time consuming with building up the layers, getting the tones, etc. I found the paper towel really useful to help me dry it. Obviously I did use a hairdryer, as you can see in the video. Just be mindful that if it's very wet, when you put the hairdryer on it, it sort of disperses and goes everywhere. So if you want more of a controlled look, then I would probably let it dry naturally a little bit before you get the hairdryer out. This is just the final layers that I'm adding in, and then I'm going to move on to my next study. So for this, I chose a section of a picture, so I used a viewfinder. We've made those in art before. As you can see, I've placed it over the picture, and I'm making a very abstract background, just randomly plonking on some coffee. I'm not being very precious with it. It is simply a background. Now I'm drawing that section I've chosen in with a bit of pencil. And now I'm going in with biro. So I'm using cross hatching, so that is a form of mark making. So this is where we draw lines going in diagonals and crossing over to create different tones. So essentially it's a tonal study with a biro. If you wanted to have a go at this, you don't have to use biro, you could use a pencil if you feel more confident. Whatever medium really you feel will work nicely. I just decided to use biro, as biro is a medium that I actually really enjoy to use. And I was really pleased with how this outcome went. And it was a lot quicker than the last outcome. And I quite liked how it was, you know, just a section. I think that was a nice contrast to the previous study where I painted the whole image. And then you can just see there, those are the 2 images I worked from, and those are my examples in the bottom left corner there of the different tones of coffee that I made. When it comes to the first example, I used all 3 tones of coffee. When it comes to the last one, I mainly just used the medium tone of coffee and just kept building up and drying it a couple of times, as you saw, to make that background, and then worked into it. So if you want to have a go at this, by all means, please do. I would love to see what you create. And on this next slide, I've just written down a few things that you might need if you want to have a go at it. So if you do want to have a go, obviously you need coffee or tea, or like I said, if you don't have those, then gravy grinders will work, or if you've got watercolours, you could have a go. But I think it's quite nice to explore a different type of medium that we wouldn't generally do at school. If you're going to do tea and you want to make different tones of tea, obviously maybe one pot you might put 3 tea bags in, one you might put 2, and one you might put 1. Obviously the longer you leave a tea bag in, the stronger the colour of the tea, so the longer it has to sort of really intensify the watercolour. Obviously if you are doing tea or coffee, you don't need to make it like you're having a cup of tea or coffee. You don't need to put any milk in it, and obviously as well, you don't need to fill it up in a mug like this. You know, just a very small amount of water is absolutely fine. And that's why I've put there some small pots to hold those different tones that you're going to make. Now a paintbrush you would need if you're going to do the painted example. Obviously if you don't have a paintbrush, you might want to do the other one. Paper to work on, a water pot if you're going to do the painted one, because you'll need to clean your brush. Paper towel is really useful just to help if you're drying different sections. Also you might want to use a hairdryer, and then a biro, a fine liner or a pencil if you're going to do the drawn in example. So if you do have a go at these, please send me an email. Obviously my email address is jspraggs@breckland.isschools.co.uk, and I would love to see the work that you make. I hope you found this video really helpful and it's given you an insight as to what GCSE Art would be like if you were to pick it as an option. If you've got any further questions, of course you can always email me and I would be happy to help you in any way that I can. I hope you all have a lovely day. Bye everyone.